you're
Okay, say continue. Okay, there's a continue at the bottom, it should say.
no.
Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Should have a very exciting discussion today about a hot topic that Harvey is going to lead us into. It's titled Immigration on Our Southern Border. Just want to review some of the rules for your participation that we talked about last week. And your participation really is critical to making this a successful program. Either Harvey or I, each week, will open up the discussion with the basic issues at stake. We'll then open it up for your involvement and participation and thoughts on the subject matter. We want to ask that you limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And either Harvey or I will then at some point in time jump back in and redirect the conversation. When you participate, we ask that you be respectful of others by actively listening to their points of view and their perspective, and not attacking the individual, but it's fair game to attack their thought process in terms of their conclusion, if you in fact don't agree. And if you don't agree, it's important that you state why and what your rationale is. So this is a participative program, and we will welcome everyone's participation. So this week, it's going to be on the immigration on the southern border. Next week, we're going to be talking about divisiveness in the United States as evidenced by recent laws passed in the state of Texas, including the abortion law. Okay. Harvey, it's all yours.
Today, as Sheldon told you, we're going to talk about the southern border. And immigration has long been a part of the success of the United States. People come to America in search of freedom and a better life. In order to immigrate legally, a person must apply for a visa. The federal government gives out a limited number of visas each year. President Biden stated he was going to increase this year's visa to 125,000. I don't want to get into a discussion on our immigration policy because that's a whole issue for a later date and a lengthier discussion. However, our system is broken, and it's been broken for over 100 years, going all the way back to the early 1920s. We want legal immigration, not the chaotic situation on our southern border. Since President Biden took office, our southern border has been flooded with migrants. We have caught over 200,000 per month for the last several months.
I'll go check it after it's ringing. Okay.
My phone.
That's just,
We have caught over 200,000 for the last several months. It is estimated that an additional 400,000 have entered illegally and disappeared into the country since the first of the year. The reason for the higher numbers of migrants are the following: the pandemic, deteriorating conditions in Central and South America, pent-up demand to enter the United States, relaxation of enforcement under Biden, and family reunification. President Biden refuses to call it a crisis. He has not visited the border. Kamala Harris, who is named to oversee the border, has only visited once, and then she was over 1,000 miles away from the major crossings. Secretary of Homeland Security, Mayorkas, as well as President Biden, state that we don't have open borders. The Secretary feels that we should allow all in need to enter, and he is proud of what we're doing in allowing migrants to enter the United States until they're here. A few weeks ago, 15,000 Haitians, most of which have been living for over 10 years in South America, were camped in Texas under the International Bridge. President Biden stated that they would all be returned. However, the Secretary of Homeland Security has stated that 10 to 12,000 have been admitted into the United States to await hearings. The court dates can take many years, as there are now over 1 million migrants awaiting their court dates. Cartels are making a fortune smuggling migrants. Human trafficking is at an all-time high, and drug dealings is increasing. Migrants have come into the United States through the southern border from 62 different countries. There is a new surge of 60,000 Haitians crossing Panama and heading for the United States, and there is another 15,000 gathering behind them. Agents are being removed from an already short-handled border patrol to process the migrants and then deliver them elsewhere. The swarm of National Guard soldiers and state police that governors assigned to guard the Texas-Mexican border earlier this summer are now gone, leaving the border almost unmanned. There are only 6% of the reinforcements left behind. Secretary of Homeland Security just announced he is canceling all remaining contracts to build the border wall. And there is over $50 million of paid for fencing lying on the ground. No country, and I repeat, no country has open borders. 25 governors have met with President Biden, have written President Biden, for a meeting, but so far there's been no response. 12 governors met at the border and developed the following 10-point plan to secure the border. 1, continue Title 42 public health restrictions. Title 42 allows agents to refuse entry due to COVID-19 health risks. Currently, under Title 42, approximately 44% of apprehensions were expelled. The Biden administration, though, has placed approximately 40,000 immigrants with COVID-19 into American cities. Progressives are pushing to eliminate this program. 2, dedicate federal resources to eradicate human and drug trafficking. 3, resume deportation of all criminals. 4, re-enter all agreements with our Norma Triangle partners and Mexico. Under Trump, the countries agreed to enforce their respective borders. 5, notice and transparency to states on unaccompanied minors and migrants. There is a number of migrants, including unaccompanied minor children, that are secretly transported into the states without notice to the officials. 6, send a clear message to potential migrants that borders are not open. 7, deploy more federal law enforcement officers and National Guard troops, as did the 4 previous presidents. 8, end, catch, and release and clear the judicial backlog. As I stated earlier, there are over 1 million migrants awaiting hearings. And during the period that they're waiting, which could take up to 5 years, they are able to travel wherever they want in the United States. It's estimated that over 50% will never show up. 9, fully reinstate the migrant protection protocols. Under this program, migrants are returned to Mexico to await their hearings and not admitted into the United States. Biden canceled, and the courts ruled, and I'm including the Supreme Court, that he was not legally allowed to do this. However, the Director of Homeland Security has stated that they are negotiating and Biden is appealing. 10, finish securing the border. This includes building a border wall, invest in infrastructure and technology, such as lights, sensors, and access roads. The president's approval rating on the border issue stands at 23%. My questions to you are as follows. Do we have open borders? If not, should they be secured? What do you think of the governor's 10-point program? Does it make sense to allow migrants to enter unvaccinated, but at the same time fire our border guards for not being vaccinated? Who should pay for the damages done to the individual properties along the border? And lastly, do you feel we face a greater security risks with current programs? And with that, we'll throw it open for your thoughts and comments. You want to raise your hand so Judy can call on you, or just go ahead and any comments?
I've got a
Yes.
comment when it's my turn.
Bob, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to talk. First of all, I commend Harvey for a very complete breakdown of what's happening. Breakdown is an appropriate word. The media, the general media, has been extremely disciplined. Every time President Trump's name is mentioned, they say President Trump's big lie, President Trump's false claims that the election was stolen, President Trump's misleading comments that the election was somehow rigged against him. And yet when they mention Biden, they never say Biden's false claims that the border is open, or rather closed, or his false claims that or Kamala Harris saying that she's been down to the border. Even Lester Holt called her out on that situation. But lately the media, even people like the host of Meet the Press, Chuck Todd, who's normally very, very much on the left, are starting to ask some actual journalistic questions. So I think the news media that my profession of journalism has to have its day of reckoning as well in this entire mess that's going on. But we can, one of the ways they brought an end to the 6-day war was the Resolution 242, which talks about secure and recognized borders. And like Harvey said in his opening comments, no country can survive that way. We just saw Angela Merkel finish 16 years as Chancellor of Germany, a very effective leader, very calming leader. She nearly was voted out of office when she threw Germany's borders wide open and had to retrench. So it's an excellent analysis. We do have open borders. There's outright lies to cover it up. That the whole Haitian fiasco, among other things, and I'll finish with this. Many of the Haitians who had been here for over 10 or 15 years or been in Central and South America were sent back to Haiti without any preparation from Haiti or for Haiti or any notification at all. And the governor's 10 points certainly are all valid and should be observed.
Thanks, Bob. Next question, anybody? Go ahead.
Okay, I've got a comment, Harvey.
Go ahead, Marilyn.
Okay, first of all, I agree with everything you said 100%. I think that we are a land of immigrants, and I think we should welcome them. However, we're not doing this the right way. We have a crisis on our hands, and Mayorkas is wrong. We basically do have an open border. there must be some vetting because many of these people bring drugs and disease, and we're in a horrible situation now with COVID. We're in a more dangerous situation, and I think because now we have no border guards, and I understand the pictures, which I didn't see any pictures of the guards using whips against the immigrants. Now maybe they did, but I didn't. And I think for they were there, I think, preventing them to come over to go over the border. That's what I think they were doing. Now we no longer have them anymore. And I think that in Biden's first conference, presidential conference, he refused to take accountability for the health, humanitarian, and security crisis at the border. He rejected bipartisan calls from Congress to take action to immediately address the crisis. And I think he has done a terrible job as far as the border is concerned, as I also do, which is another topic, Afghanistan. Okay, thank you.
Kenny, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you haven't seen anything yet. In the next couple of years, there's going to be lack of water on sub-Saharan area in Africa. There are going to be immigrants coming from Africa, brought over here by coyotes and boats, and it's going to be tremendous. Everybody, dislikes Trump. We need a wall. What we need is a wall with doors, specific doors. We had a wall on the East Coast during the 1840s and the 1910s, and that was called the Atlantic Ocean. So, first of all, if Mexico allows those people to transport themselves through their countries, they have to stay there and Mexicans have to take care of them if they've allowed them in until we're prepared to take them. We need a wall. We need people. Those Haitians that have people here that will take care of them like they did in the 1910s, and part of the families, I think should be let in a regular way and sent to the relatives that will have them. We do need an immigration, but the immigration we need should be regulated to what we need and what our problems are. So you can't do this without a wall. And I'm not talking about Trump's wall. Trump's wall had no doors. I'm saying allow certain people in through the wall, people we need and people that have relatives here. And that's it. And keep the others in Mexico. You cannot have open borders. And the fact that he's letting COVID positive people in this country is a crime. Biden is now captured by the populist movement in this country. I was amazed to read that the populist caucus in the House is 92 people. That's almost 40% of the Democratic members of Congress are now progressive. These progressive people who have now rejected, I'll be done in a second, rejected Manchin's means test, means that they don't care about means. They want a socialist government here. And Biden has been captured by them. And that has to stop. And it's gone too far now with the House. The House is almost lost. It will be lost next year. And the majority are going to be progressives who are very safe in their districts and won't be rejected. That's it.
Sheldon, unmute yourself. Sheldon, unmute. You're muted, Sheldon.
Oh,
There you go.
Okay,
He's unmuted.
so I'm gonna offer a different perspective. In the New York Harbor on the Statue of Liberty, is a plaque that says, "Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, yearning to be free, yearning to breathe, the wretched, the refuge of your teeming shores. Send me these, the homeless, the tempest-tossed. I left the lamp beside the golden door." We were an nation of immigrants. That was the attitude in the 19th century. When Emma Lazarus wrote that, she was very appreciative of the fact that her family had been allowed to immigrate to the United States indirectly from Spain. They were persecuted under the Spanish Inquisition, and they traveled from Spain to Portugal, from Portugal to the Netherlands, from the Netherlands to Brazil, from Brazil to Cuba. And finally, from the end of the 1500s, from the early 1500s until the middle of the 18th century, 1759, her family finally got to the United States. The fact that there were interim stops, Netherlands, Brazil, Cuba, did not impede her family from being thought of as an immigrant. It is a false narrative that we're getting, that these Haitians who are coming to our country because they spent years in Brazil or years in Chile aren't immigrants. They are the refuge, they are the wretched, the refuge of terrible events that are looking for sanctuary. Now, every country is entitled to determine who immigrates and on what basis and how many immigrants they will take during a period of time. The question is, in terms of policy, though, is not always been made on an equitable basis. The United States immigration policy, it was instituted in 1924, targeted the countries that were where immigrants had come from Italy, from Ireland, and from Eastern Europe, because we no longer wanted Jews and Catholics in this country. And those immigration standards were in place from 1924 through the 1970s. So we did have laws and restrictions that were rigidly enforced. Even when Jews in Europe were being murdered, we didn't alter those numbers. So those laws that we were put in place aren't always influenced by fairness and rationale, but frequently by biases. And I suspect that's what exists today. In 1980, we opened up the doors. We eliminated all the country by country limitations, and immigration became open. Europeans weren't coming here anymore. We weren't receiving Norwegians or Belgians or people from Scotland. The people started coming in here were from Asia, from South America. And it started changing the color complexion of this country. There was a demographic study.
Sheldon, let
Wait,
me stop
Harvey,
you.
I'm going to complete this, because when you're talking about is immigration, like it or not. So we found a need, a concern, that the country was changing its color. But the projection was by 2050, the country would be a white minority country. To a significant degree, the same biases that existed in 1924, targeting Catholics and Jews, is what really is targeting the limitation on the southern border and the impetus to build a border wall.
Well, what is your solution?
Sheldon, the only thing I want to say, wait a minute,
Okay, hang on.
here,
one second.
hold on, one at a time. I got the floor right now.
That's fine.
First of all, I wanted to avoid a general discussion on immigration. Our laws are broken, and I said that earlier. And when people came into the country, even our grandparents, they came in legally under the law. The people coming in on the southern border are coming in illegally and in massive. And even though we want our country to support immigrants, we can't afford to open our doors to the world.
Let
We
me
just can't.
rebut this legal and illegal. When our grandparents immigrated, they got on a ship in Hamburg, Germany. There was no papers completed. They didn't complete papers and complete the legal process until they got into the United States. There was no process outside the United States.
Many of them had family here. ready to
Let's,
support them.
all right, let's move on. Who else wants to speak? Marilyn, were you saying?
Terry's
something?
leper, but he stepped away. Terry's leper has his hand up, but he stepped away, so.
No, this is Jerry Prod.
Go ahead, Jerry.
Okay, I agree with the statement that maybe we can't at this juncture get into necessarily an extensive policy debate on immigration generally. I think the question is that what do we do about the problem that we do have a problem, whether we call it a crisis or not, on the southern border. But I think an important part of the backdrop of all of this, and this is going to seem remote, but I want to tie it in if I can in about 30 seconds. This has to be viewed in light of the fact that our progressive movement in this country is really pushing for a more abrupt decline of Western civilization. That has to do with who we want to let in and who we don't want to let in. But part of the new progressive movement is the whole idea of the Western civilization and its roots is under attack. And a lot of the progressive response to this is that if we open the borders, maybe we can break down the lock, the intellectual lock that Western civilization has had on a lot of our thought. And I think that has a lot to do with the background and what the press is doing. And I think that what we have to do at some point, we keep mentioning Biden, Biden, Biden. I don't happen to believe that Biden is necessarily making all of these decisions. It's the image makers in the basement that are making all these decisions. And until we can somehow get the press and the media turned around to shine an objective light on this, I'm not worried about what it's doing to the ethnic makeup of the country, because that's going to be a constant. We can decide to do that if we want to, but somehow we've got to get to the point where we can decide whether or not to control our border. And I think we can't do that unless the media itself begins, they're being forced to take a look at this. But I think without that change, we're not going to make any progress.
Terry, you had your hand up?
I'm sorry?
Unmute.
Unmute. Okay. I had to step away for a couple of seconds. A couple things. One of the things is that how Biden became president. I mean, it was a rather inglorious 40 years in Senate. And how does somebody with history like that become elevated to the most powerful position in the United States? I mean, I find that simply mind-boggling. I go back to my high school and I see who the leaders of the school of my graduating class were. They were leaders, and their lives were they were
Terry,
super lives.
let's stay with the discussion on the southern border immigration. I'm not concerned about the high school.
Okay. From that particular situation, I've got nothing more to say. Bye.
Marilyn, do you have your hand up?
Okay, we need, look, we need to be sympathetic. We need to be caring, show empathy, and let some of these pathetic people, especially the children, over the border. But we need to have a plan. We do not have a plan. And I go back to what Bob Cohn said about Angela Merkel. Her decision to open up Germany's border to 1 million refugees in 2015 caused a horrible rift in Europe, and her popularity dropped. Her refugee policy dominated the last election in 2017, which was close, and she almost lost because people resented her. These immigrants went on, I remember, and committed all kinds of crimes. We cannot let that happen. And the U.S. Border Patrol apprehended 6,768 people from Haiti in August. Meanwhile, Mexico will not accept anyone from Haiti. Now, Friday, I read, if that's correct, that Biden raised the refugee admission target to 125,000 for 2022. I don't know what you think about that number. I'm not sure what I think about it. And lastly, in 2021, the first 3 months of the fiscal year, over 296,000 individuals were apprehended. So I think we need a wall. We do. There's just no question in my mind. Okay, thank you.
Susan, you had your hand up? You have to unmute. Unmute.
Okay. There are a couple of things that I want to say. One, when I think about the people that are coming, not the Haitians, but the people that are coming from Central America, where, like, I remember a couple of years ago having this argument at the dinner table, whereas if I thought my granddaughter was going to be raped or something, I'd take her by the hand and I'd travel as far as I needed to travel to make sure she was okay and she was safe. I also think another one of the problems is that we don't have enough judges there to be able to see if these people that are seeking asylum really are seeking asylum. Pour your money into the judges and let's get these people processed. And if they don't make it, we'll send it back. But if they're truly seeking asylum, then there should be something that can be done for them.
Very good. Thank you. You know, when Reagan was the president, we had 6 million illegal immigrants in the country. And Reagan made an agreement with Congress that he would allow them to stay and apply for citizenship if Congress would secure the border. And that was the agreement, but Congress never gave the funds to secure the border. And now it's wide open, it's even worse. And we have 14 million illegal immigrants at the present time in the country. And we haven't talked about security. As I said in my opening remarks, people aren't just coming in from Haiti and the Northern Triangle. They've come in from 62 different countries. Do you feel this is a security problem and something we should be concerned about? Go ahead, Kenny.
Yes, absolutely. We should be concerned about it because I think we have to take a look at, in terms of the compassion that we want to show and the openness that we want to show and so forth, that is primarily intended for people who are citizens here. As was mentioned in your opening remarks, we talked about the wretched refuse of the shores of all the rest of the people in the world. There are probably 1 billion or 2 billion people in the world that would very much like to come here and to enjoy the compassion and the things that we talk about, particularly from the left, but a lot of it is from the right as well, the agreement that we want to respect each other and all the rest of that. We have no way of knowing. Now, my parents came here from Eastern Europe, and the people that are coming now, we don't have any way of even knowing whether or not they want to swear allegiance to this country. And we're letting them in even without knowing that, without knowing whether or not they even want to. We don't know, for example, with all of the people from Mexico that have come here, whether they can still vote in Mexican elections. Can they vote and support a government in Mexico that is opposed to what we stand for here in the United States? We have let people in, maybe even without knowing it, who have a perfect ability to influence policies in other countries that are antithetical to our interests. We don't make anybody swear allegiance to this country. I think that's a problem.
Kenny?
Well, we had a wall, as I said before, on the East Coast called the Atlantic Ocean. We need a wall on our southern border. I'm not talking about a wall like Trump. I'm talking about a wall with plans to accept certain numbers of immigrants. The problem we have, that's the goal. The problem we have now, and someone brought it up about the progressives, is that the progressives have now captured Biden. They control the House of Representatives because there's almost 40% of the Democratic members, and they do want open borders. And this is a problem, and Biden is under their influence. And there is no plan. And so what you have to do is you have to build a wall and then have a plan to get the people accepted into this country. And if Mexico allows them to march through their country, they should keep the immigrants there until we're ready to accept them. And we should accept them under a system that is regulated and not chaotic. I'm not saying prevent immigrants. I'm saying let's accept immigrants, which we do need, in a regulated way. And if there's no wall there, there's no way to regulate this.
Terry, you're next.
Yeah, getting back at Sheldon on Biden again. It's his fault. I mean, he's supposed to be a manager. That's what the president is supposed to do. He's supposed to draw the country together, and he hasn't made a plan for the border. He's never been there. Is that right? He's never been to the border?
Correct.
Okay, and that's just absolutely poor. On deviating a little bit on the Germany situation with the influx of immigrants, it wasn't completely altruistic on their part because they were facing a decreasing birth rate, and they were deeply concerned about the future economy of Germany, and they were concerned about needing people to compensate for their declining birth rate. So it wasn't completely all love for immigration that Germany allowed the refugees in.
Yeah, they already accepted the Turks years before because of what you say, Terry. The Turks were there before.
Yep.
Well, let me say this. We need immigrants. You need people to come in that are younger, that are going to take jobs. There are plenty of jobs out there that are going unfulfilled because Americans don't want to do it. I'm all in favor of immigration. I don't want my marks to be construed that I'm against immigration. I just want legal immigration. I want some order. I don't think we have that. But as I say, we could have a 2-week discussion on what our immigration policy should be. I'm just concerned about what's happening down on the southern border with the numbers and with the lack of security. Any other comments?
Yes, I think I agree with what you say, but there's two parts to the old immigration when my parents came right around the time of the last flu epidemic. And besides wanting to get out of a bad situation that you were in, that's half of it. The other half of it was these people wanted to come here and become Americans. They wanted to swear allegiance to this country. We don't even talk about that anymore. We just talk about whether or not we want to let a lot of people in. We can decide that. Okay, we want a lot, we want a little, and I agree that we do need some kind of immigration, but I think the kind of immigration that we want isn't people that are just suffering from where they are, but that if they want affirmatively to become Americans and swear allegiance and support to this country and mean it. I think we need to insist on that part as well.
Excuse me.
We're not
Excuse me.
even paying any attention to that.
I think you're making an assumption of what these people want that you don't know. I think most of them that I have met, and I have worked with a lot of Hispanic people, they'd love to become an American, and they're studying in terms of to meet the test for citizenship. So I don't buy the point at all that they don't care to be American and they're loyal to the country of their origin. It doesn't stand up in fact, based on facts.
Well, I will take your point. I say certainly don't all, but I think I take your point.
Okay.
Can I say something else, or is anybody in front of me? I don't want to get in if they're not.
Go ahead.
Okay, 35% approved, by the way, of Biden's handling of immigration. And, the point being is that so many of them, which is just such a shame, they want to come in to the United States. They're good people. They want to work. They want to, and we shouldn't turn them away. But then you've got others, as I said, that are on drugs and that have disease. Now, was I right in reading this, though, that many refugees arrive in the United States after they have to pass background checks. So Biden is doing something, and other screenings. That information is then checked against the United States government databases.
Yes.
The response in this checking is supposed to only take 2 weeks, but the bad thing is it can take over a year due to different backlogs. The name checks is against various databases, known criminals, and suspects. Now, if we are in fact doing that, we are doing something. Am I correct that we are doing that with some of the people coming over?
What Marilyn just described isn't the intended policy. There's always been a checking process when people immigrated to our countries. Mm-hmm. My grandparents would tell me about how when they immigrated in Ellis Harbor, there was always a checking process for health. People were fearful that one of their children might have tuberculosis, and then the whole family would be sent back. So it's always been an integral part of our immigration policy to do checking. Now, whether it's pervasive enough, that's another issue. But we do checking, and that's the whole point in terms of building a dossier for the immigration courts to rule on whether somebody is entitled to enter the United States or not.
Bob Cohn, unmute yourself. Bob, unmute yourself.
Got it. Now can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Anyway, my great grand uncle, Nolan Dewaskin, who was the leader of the old BSKI synagogue, lived to 104 years old. He was smuggled into this country as luggage because he had the measles. They were worried they would send him back to his dying day. He was worried that the immigration police would catch up with him and send him back. He was a model citizen, president of his shoal. He was a terrific all-around guy. And he was from a town called Glukov, which reminds me of Marty Glukov, the guy who Harvey Gerstein worked with on Covenant House. It was either Freud or Einstein who said, insanity is expecting different results from the same behavior. By now, I mean, Biden does seem to have some flashes. I don't know whether they give him a dose of very, very strong coffee, because sometimes he'll seem focused and sharp, but for the most part, he has a demeanor of a person who stepped off the floor of the wrong floor and forgot why he was even there. He seems befuddled and confused. He clearly is a captive of the so-called progressive wing, and I wish that term had not stuck. I associate progressivism with the good policies of Woodrow Wilson, with the trust-busting policies of Theodore Roosevelt, and I certainly don't compare them to the Squad, which is on another topic, extremely anti-Israel. So I'm not expecting different results from Joe Biden. The reason I pray for his health is that Kamala Harris has proven that she would probably be even worse. Her answer to questions which she doesn't have an answer is to kind of giggle nervously. That doesn't give me a very secure feeling.
Phil, go ahead.
Unmute yourself.
Unmute yourself, Phil. There you go.
There I go. I disagree. I happen to like Joe Biden, and I think that he's been a good president and far superior to the one prior to himself. And if you got to make a choice, he was the choice to make. But that's my opinion. But if we were to, the thing that's missing, and this was even recommended by Ted Cruz, who I don't like at all, and that is to hire a lot more immigration attorneys to act as judges on the border. And I don't understand why we don't do that. I don't understand why we can't have more people. If we need more people to look at the immigrants and decide who needs to come in and who's eligible to come in, why we can't have more people doing that? It boggles my mind that we don't hire more people and send them all to Texas. They all will send just men so they don't need abortions, and we'll end up with a group of people who can monitor and determine who should be coming in and who should not be coming in under the laws of the United States.
Kenny, go ahead again. Ken, unmute yourself.
We went through this before in 1910 and 1840. We had a regulated way at Ellis Island to do this. Why can't we have the same type of regulated entrance in Texas? I mean, we could build structures there like they built on the East Coast to do this in a regular way. It's totally chaotic there, especially allowing people in with COVID. I am pro-immigration. I spend a lot of time in Colorado. Almost everybody there, I've been there for 30 years. The Mexicans came, they were hardworking, and now the Mexicans own most of the businesses there. They're great people. But we have to regulate entrance. And I'm telling you, this is nothing that you're not, when you see what's going to happen in 2 or 3 years, when Africa starts emptying out because of lack of water and coming up through South America into our country. It's going to get worse. And if we don't fix this now, and we have to fix it now, it's going to be total chaos in those days. And not only that, it is going to divide the country even more make the progressives stronger, and also make the Trumpers stronger. Our problem now is that, as I said before, Biden is now totally captured by the progressives. He has no way out. And the same in Harris is a non-entity. I like Biden personally, but I'm afraid his presidency is going to be exampled by Jimmy Carter. This is going to be a disaster. And it's mainly the fault, from my point of view, of the progressive movement in this country, which is totally anti-Israel, but that's not relative. Okay.
Yeah. Ken, let me respond to a point that you make, Ken, about the difference in immigration policy and enforcement. During the 19th century and most of the 20th century, immigrants came through one place.
Right.
The Port of New York. It's very easy. There's some came in from Seattle too, the Asians, but relatively minor. But when you have immigrants coming into a port,
It'll be after 10 o'clock.
It's easy to enforce policy.
I work out with a trainer from 9 to 10. So
Whoa, somebody.
I'm trying not to smell bad. Okay.
Somebody's on the phone, I think.
Thank you.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Shel.
I muted him.
Okay, so when you have now, we're dealing with a much broader problem, the Texas border, which is hundreds of miles without a central point in which immigrants enter. Doesn't matter where we set up the base for immigration authority. They enter anywhere on the Rio Grande River. So we need to rethink the whole process in terms of how we enforce and our immigration laws and still make it amenable for immigrants to enter the country, recognizing that they are coming from the southern border. They're not coming in from New York anymore. They're not coming in from Seattle.
And that's
We've
why
never made the adjustment.
that's why we need a wall and a central entrance. Are we not capable of doing that?
John, I haven't heard from you. You've kept quiet. Do you have any comment?
Oh, I've been listening to everybody's comments, and I'm in agreement with most of them that the wall seems like it's a necessary evil. Unfortunately, it is it has a title that is connected to the former president, and that makes it objectionable, regardless of what it's worth or not. Anything associated with him is rejected. Unfortunately, that's why they discontinued the construction. It seems like what we need is a wall, or some, doesn't have to be physical wall. There are all these new ways of creating barriers, or at least policing the border electronically. But in order to do that, you also need personnel, and evidently that's been withdrawn too. And I can't understand why they don't just throw a lot of people down there and try and stop it. As long as you squeeze those immigrants, those trying to get across, into fewer doors, through fewer doors, you'll have more control. So even if the wall isn't complete, they'll have to go around it, or under it maybe, or over it. But most of them will have to go around it, and then you can concentrate your policing in that area.
The progressives will not allow it.
Well, this is a problem. There are people who own property along the border who are vehemently opposed to that government interference on their property where the border is.
I'm talking about the progressives in this country.
Yeah, well, that's a problem.
You know, as I understand it, there are groups provided to some refugees coming over the border that provide legal services. education, healthcare, and housing support. Whether or not that's true, I don't know, but I read it many times. And I'll say one other thing. Governor Abbott, who I detest everything he says, but he said he will build a border wall and increase arrests of undocumented migrants. And I'm sure, knowing him, he will.
Jerry, do you have a comment? Bamberger, Jerry, do you have a comment?
Well, to me, yes, this is Jerry. And I don't think there's any question really that we can control the border physically. We can. That's a separate question from the values involved in any of the rest of that. But it's also clear that as a country, we don't want to yet. We're arguing about all this stuff, but the first question is, do we want to control the border or not? And so far, the answer is no.
Jerry Bamberger, do you have your hand up? Unmute yourself. You're muted. You're still muted.
You have to lightly tap the screen someplace,
The
and then
only,
a drop-down thing will pop up, and then you press the unmute button. I learned that the hard way, because last week rather, I went the whole way without knowing how to unmute myself.
Jerry
Jerry?
Bamberger?
the only thing I have to say is everything is political today. People take their positions based on politics and not to resolve the issues. And that's sad.
Well, it's almost time to wrap it up, but I want to say we haven't discussed the fact that these people are openly traveling across many countries. Who could have stopped them? Trump had an agreement with the countries to just do that, to stop them. And everything Trump did, and he did a lot of bad things, but on immigration, I agree with a lot of the things he did do. Biden is overruled. And the Migrate Protection Protocol said that the people would stay in Mexico and not come into the United States, where they can travel all over. And the Supreme Court agreed with with the lower court, saying that he didn't have any authority to do away with this law. And so far, the administration has just ignored the law. I think that's wrong. I am concerned about the security. When people from all over the world can just walk across the Rio Grande and come into our country, we have no protection. And I do think after what happened in Afghanistan, we are going to get a lot of people that want to come in and do damage to the United States. I think, forgetting about immigration, I think the border has to be secured, and we are not doing it. The administration does not want to do it. I feel they are committed to open borders, and I think that's the wrong decision. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sheldon to end the session.
Well, there's not really much more for me to say, Harvey. I already announced it. Next week, we're going to be talking about a number of laws, including the law on abortion came out of Texas, how that's influencing many other states in the United States, and what this suggests for the future of this country. So that's the conversation for next week.
Yeah, hello.
I hope you intend to join us.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you all for
everyone.
attending. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
next week.
Thank you, everyone. We'll
Thank
see you next
you.
week.
Uh,
Bye.
No, I don't think so.
Bye. Thank you.
Don't turn it off. You got to leave.